You don't lack confidence. You've just been performing instead of leading. And the problem with that, people can feel it. You can feel when you're saying what sounds right, adjusting to be liked, or filtering yourself mid-sentence. And it might keep things smooth, but it doesn't build trust. So let me ask you something honestly. When you speak, are you actually saying what's true for you? Or are you saying what feels safest to say? If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Cherry. I'm a spiritual life coach, numerologist, and energy alchemist. And I help you break the patterns that keep you stuck so you can stop second-guessing yourself and start showing up with clarity, authority, and real presence. Because this isn't just about confidence. This is about your identity, your nervous system, and how you've learned to perform instead of lead. In this video, I'm breaking down why people pleasers struggle with leadership, how your energy body 7, your aura self, becomes inconsistent when you perform, and what you need to shift if you want to stop editing yourself and start being taken seriously. Because leadership isn't about saying more, about becoming someone who can stand in what's true without adjusting it. Now, before we go deeper, if this is already landing for you, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell. It really does help the channel. Because this space isn't about surface level growth. It's about becoming someone who actually holds their power consistently. And if you're ready for that, drop a fire emoji in the comments. Okay, let's start about what's really going on here. Because most people don't even realize they're doing this. And let's be real for a moment. You didn't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to perform instead of be myself. This is something you learned. You learned to read the room, pick up on people's reactions, adjust your tone, your words, and your energy. So you could stay light, avoid conflict, feel accepted. And over time, that stopped being something you did and became who you are. So now it feels normal to think before you speak, soften what you really mean, say things in a way that will land well. And again, none of that is wrong. But here's where it becomes a problem. You're no longer expressing yourself. You're editing yourself in real time. And that means you're not speaking from truth. You're speaking from strategy. Will this land well? Will they like this? Is this too much? And the moment that happens, you leave your own authority, because leadership doesn't come from saying the right thing. It comes from saying the true thing, even when it's uncomfortable. And this is the trap. You've become so good at performing that you don't even realize it when you're doing it. You just know that something feels slightly off. You don't feel fully expressed. And people don't quite meet you at your level because they're not actually meeting you. They're meeting the version of you that you think they'll respond best to. And that comes with a cost, whether you realize it or not. So let's strip this right back, because this isn't just something you do. This is something you've become. At some point, you learned that being yourself wasn't always safe. So you adapted. You learned how to read the room before you spoke, sense how people were feeling, adjust your tone, your words, and your energy. Not consciously, but consistently, so that you could avoid tension, rejection, or avoid being too much. And here's the part most people miss. That adaptation worked. It helped you stay accepted, stay connected, stay in control of how people responded to you. So your system keeps reinforcing it. And over time, you didn't just use this strategy. You started to identify with it. You became the easy one, the understanding one, the one who doesn't make things awkward. And now that feels like your personality. But it's not. It's a pattern. Because what's actually happening in real time is this. Before you speak, you filter. Before you show up, you adjust. Before you express something fully, you check. How will this be received? And that split-second check, that's the moment you leave your own authority. Because instead of asking, what's true for me? You're asking, what will work here? And those are not the same thing. One is leadership. The other is performance. And the more you stay in that pattern, the more disconnected you become from your truth, your voice, your natural authority. Because you're constantly reinforcing outside of yourself before you allow yourself to speak. So of course you feel slightly off, slightly disconnected, like you're not being fully seen, because you're not actually showing up as yourself. You're showing up as the version of you that you think will be accepted. And here's the truth that might sting a little. You can't lead from that place, because leadership requires clarity, consistency, and a stable sense of self. And performance destroys all three. So let's talk about the cost of this, because this isn't just about affecting how you feel. It's shaping your entire reality. So let's talk about what this is actually costing you, because this isn't just an internal thing. This shows up everywhere. When you perform instead of lead, you lose clarity because you're not anchored in what you think. You're anchored in what will work. So your message becomes slightly diluted, slightly softened, and slightly unclear. And people feel that. They might not be able to explain it, but they feel it. Some things not fully landing here. And that leads to the next thing. You lose authority. Because authority isn't about saying more. It's about saying something with certainty. And you can't be certain if you're editing yourself in real time. So what happens? People question you more, don't fully trust what you're saying, or don't take action from what you share. Not because you're wrong, but because your energy isn't fully behind it. And this one hits the hardest. You lose self-trust because every time you hold something back, change what you're going to say, or adjust yourself mid-expression, you're telling your system what I naturally want to say isn't enough. And that creates hesitation. So now even when you want to speak, you second guess yourself. And the cycle continues. You perform, you feel slightly off, you get uncertain, you perform even more. And here's the part you really need to hear. People don't follow performance. They follow truth. They follow the person who feels clear, grounded, and consistent in who they are. And right now, you're giving them different versions of you, depending on the situation, the person, or how confident you feel. And that inconsistency, it blocks leadership, visibility, and growth. Not because you're not capable, but because your signal keeps changing. And this is where Energy Body 7 becomes critical, because this isn't just about behavior. It's about your presence. So let's bring this into Energy Body 7, your aura self, because your aura isn't just about being visible. It's about how you are experienced. It's your presence. It's your signal. It's the thing that communicates. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is the level I operate at. And here's what you need to understand. Leadership is not built through words. It's built through consistency of presence, through a signal that doesn't keep changing. Now look at what happens when you're performing. Your aura becomes inconsistent, diluted, hard to read, because one moment you're fully expressed, clear and grounded, and the next you've softened your message, adjusted your energy, or pulled something back. So your signal becomes, this is who I am, but also maybe not. And that creates confusion, not just for other people, but for your own system, because your energy isn't stabilized. And when your aura isn't stable, you can't hold leadership, because leadership requires a clear signal, a consistent presence, and a grounded identity. Not perfection, not saying everything right, but being someone who doesn't shift themselves depending on what's around them. And this is the difference between being seen versus being felt. You can be visible and still not be felt as a leader, because people aren't responding to your words. They're responding to your certainty. And certainty doesn't come from getting it right. It comes from not leaving yourself mid-expression. That's Energy Body 7. It's not about being bigger. It's about being stable in who you are. So people know what they're meeting every time. So now the question becomes, what actually needs to change? Because you can't perform better your way into leadership. At some point, you have to become someone who stops performing completely. So let's be clear. You don't become a leader by learning new strategies. You become a leader by becoming someone different. Right now, you've been operating as a performer, and a performer is always asking, what's the right thing to say? How do I make this land well? What will they think of this? Everything is referenced externally. But a leader moves differently. A leader asks, what is true for me to say? What do I stand for here? What needs to be said, regardless of how it lands? And that shift is uncomfortable, because the performer identity is built on approval, acceptance, and control. But leadership requires honesty, consistency, and self-trust, which means you have to let go of something, the need to be liked. And I'm going to say this straight. You cannot be fully expressed and fully approved by everyone at the same time. You have to choose, because the moment you stop performing, things will shift. People will react differently. see you differently, and respond to you differently. And that's the part most people avoid. Not because they don't want to lead, but because they don't want the change that comes with it. But here's the truth, you're already leading. Just not in the way you think. Right now, you're leading people to misunderstand you, underestimate you, and meet you below your level, because that's what your current identity is modeling. So the real shift is this. I am someone who leads now, not when you feel ready, not when you've perfected it, now. And you start acting accordingly, even when it feels new, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when part of you wants to go back to what feels familiar. Because identity is not built when it feels easy. It's built when you hold it when it doesn't. So now let's make this practical, because this is where it actually becomes real. So let's make this real, because this doesn't change when you understand it. It changes when you catch yourself mid-performance and choose something different. First, catch the moment you start editing yourself. This is the most important step. Right before you change your wording, soften your opinion, or add something to make it land better, pause. That's the moment you're about to leave yourself, and ask yourself, what was I actually going to say before I adjusted it? That's your truth, and that's what you need to start trusting. 2, speak from truth, not strategy. You've been trained to think, how do I say this in the best way? Shift that to what is actually true for me right now, and then say it. Not the polished version, not the softened version, the real version. Because leadership isn't built on perfect delivery. It's built on honest expression. 3, stop filling silences. This one will stretch you. You say something and then immediately feel the urge to explain, justify, or keep talking to make sure it lands. Don't. Say what you need to say and let the silence exist, because that silence, that's where your authority actually lands. 4, stay present when it feels uncomfortable. This is the nervous system piece. When you stop performing, you will feel exposed, uncertain, and slightly vulnerable. That doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It means you're not hiding anymore. So instead of pulling back, stay, breathe, let your body adjust to being fully expressed. 5, let people respond however they respond. This is the biggest shift. You're so used to managing reactions that the moment someone looks uncomfortable, disagrees, or responds differently, you adjust. Stop. Let them have their experience, because their reaction is not something you need to control. And the more you allow that, the more stable your presence becomes. 6, repeat until it becomes your baseline. This isn't a one-time decision. This is a practice. Every time you speak truthfully, don't adjust, and stay present, you're reinforcing, this is who I am now. And eventually, you stop shrinking, you stop thinking about it, you stop second-guessing, and you become someone who doesn't perform anymore, doesn't filter themselves constantly, and doesn't leave their own authority. That's when leadership becomes natural. And this is where we close this out, because now it comes down to one thing. And I want you to sit with this honestly. When you speak, are people meeting you, or are they meeting the version of you that you think they'll respond best to? You don't lack confidence. You've just been performing for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to lead. And if that doesn't change, your results won't either. But the moment you start to speak from truth, stay in your energy, and stop adjusting yourself, everything shifts. Your authority, your presence, your impact, all of it. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, I can see exactly where I'm performing, but I don't know how to hold this consistently. That's exactly what we work through inside my self-empowerment 30-minute free strategy session, where we break down your identity patterns, your performance behaviors, and how to rebuild your self-concept so you can actually hold leadership. So if you're ready to stop performing and start being taken seriously at your level, go ahead and book your session. The link's in the description box below. And if this has landed for you, I would really love for you to hit subscribe and like this video. Drop a fire emoji in the comments and let me know what really landed for you. It really does help the channel, because this version of you, she doesn't perform anymore. She leads. And if you haven't grabbed any of my freebies in the description box below, there's 3 of them down there. Go and grab them now. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.